when he first had his first son, and how old was like Isaac when he have Jacob, and how old was Jacob when he have his other sons and stuff like that. So we want to delve deep into some studies this morning, bless God. And as we move on, we just want to give God all the glory that belongs unto him. Genesis chapter 12. So we want to look at Genesis 12 and 13 this morning. Genesis chapter 12 and Genesis chapter 13. Genesis 12 and 13 this morning. So we want to look at a few information there as we are in the book of Genesis. We already studies we already do this study on creation and many other aspects of Genesis. And now we are looking at some different areas, bless God. And when we study Genesis 12, we are looking at the call of Abraham, the call of Abraham. And when God called his people for a specific task, there's one thing we have to understand and identify is that we have to answer, right? We have to answer a call, because when we answer the call, then it determines where God is taking us. Bless God. So I want to share some information here. So this morning I want to use Genesis 13, or I want to read Genesis 13. You have a Bible, let us read together Genesis chapter 13, praise God. And it read, and Abraham went up out of Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south. And Abraham was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. And he went on his journey from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been, at the beginning between Bethel and Hai, unto the place of the altar, which he had made there at the first. And there Abraham called on the name of the Lord. It's not Abraham, it's Abraham called on the name of the Lord. And Lot also, which went with him, with Abraham, had flocks and herd and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, because their substance was so great that they couldn't stay together with their cattle. For their substances was very great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzites dwelled in the land. And Abraham said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdman and thy herdman, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lift up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Then Lot shows him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. And the Lord said unto Abraham, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it, and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. Then Abraham removed his tent, and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Abram, and built there an altar unto the Lord. Bless God. All right, so now we see Abraham's journey, but it said after Abraham and Lot separated to do what God have him to do. He said, God said, look eastward, westward, northward, and southward. And after that, he said, Abraham removed his tent. So when Abraham removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar. So Abraham now dwelt in what? Mamre, Hebron. Hebron, and built there an altar to the Lord. That means, look at what happened. God said to Abraham, walk through the land. Can you imagine before God gave it to him, God said, walk through the land. Just imagine how much journey, how much days it take Abraham to walk through that land. Think about it, from east to west to north to south. Just imagine how long it take Abraham to walk through the land. And when Abraham walked through the land, guess what happened? God said, this entire land, I'm going to give it to you and what? Your descendant. I'm going to give it to who? You and who? Your descendant. I'm going to give it to everyone, because think about it. Did you ever look in the Bible and they say, anywhere you put your soul and your feet, God will give it to you? Do you know that sometimes it's a significance of God doing something? That means when God is doing something, God will allow you to do something. So God make Abraham make a mistake. He said, walk through the land, east, west, north, south. Bless God. So I want you to identify and understand now, people of God, what is going on here. When God gave you a task, and when God gave Abraham a task, did Abraham listen to God? Listen to God. Huh? Yes, he did. And I want us to understand clearly that when God gives you a task, you don't listen to man, you listen to God. What I said, when God gives you a task, you listen to God. Because if you listen to man, you will never fulfill the task that God has put in order to get. Because many times people will understand that when Abraham get his task, or when God gave him a task and sent him on a journey. I remember, God called Abraham to do a task. And if God called you to do a task, God called you. And when God called you, you have to stand for that task and fulfill that task and that purpose, because God called you to do that task. But I want you to understand that no man that God called for a specific task, everything didn't just happen in a popcorn mentality. By the process of time, things come together for the purpose of God's glory. Bless God. For the purpose of what? For the purpose of God's glory. So now we have to identify what Abraham did. Bless God. Thank God this morning showers of blessing, to God be glory. When God is doing something, we have to understand. He said, and it came, look at this now, in verse 13. When we look at 13, he said, arise, look at this, verse 13, chapter 13 and verse 17. He said, arise, walk through the land. Look at this, look what God said to Abraham. Just imagine how big Canaan was. And God said to Abraham, walk through the land in what? In the length of it. And in the breadth of it, for what? For I will give it unto thee. Walk through the land. All right, just look at Canaan. The length and the breadth, I mean, from east to west, to north to south. Just imagine how long that journey take Abraham. At that time, he didn't have a bus. He didn't have a train. At that time, Abraham didn't have, the only thing I know that Abraham might have, they said they have cattle. So maybe he might have horses and stuff like that. All right, so think about it now. And God said to him, go through the land. Go from east to west to north to south. At that time, God said, I will give you the land. But think about it. People inhabit the land when God said that. When God said, I will give you the land, remember, people was already in the land. But God made a promise to Abraham. God gave him a promise and said, everywhere the sole of your feet walk through this land, I'm going to give it to you and to your generation. What if Abraham had doubt God? Think about this. What if Abraham had doubt God? What would happen? If Abraham doubt God, do you think today would have a history about Abraham and his descendant and his... No. So we have to get some clarity today about how God moved. God moved in what? Mysterious ways. And we have to understand, if God called you for a specific task, all you need to do is just to stay in line and stay in position and allow God to do what he's doing. And in his time, he will fulfill that purpose in your life. Bless God. All right, so last week I come up with a few information here. Bless God. Remember we was going through a few studies, and I said I want us to look prior to the timing and the age gap, right? So, first of all, he said, when God said to Abraham, get thee out of thy country, right? How old was Abraham? According to Genesis 12 and verse 4, how old was Abraham? Genesis 12 and verse 4. So, we want to look at Genesis 12 and verse 4. Bless God. So according to Genesis 12, so Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was what? 75. So Abraham was what? 75 when he departed from Haran. Where did he go? When he departed from Haran, from Iran. Where did he go? When Abraham, Genesis 12 verse 4, if you continue in verse 5, right? And Abraham took Sarah his wife, right? And what? And Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the soul that they had gotten in what? Iran. And where did they go? And they went forth to go into where? The land of Canaan. So when they departed from Aram, where did they go? They go to the land of what? Canaan. All right, so we want to look at a few information here. All right, so when they went to the land of Canaan, right? According to Genesis now, we want to look at a few information. So we want to push ahead because we're in the book of Genesis, and I want to navigate through a few information here, through a few research. Even though, let us read Genesis 14 also. Just God, then we can get a bit a context. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Shedorlamar, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Nation, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bisha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shimber, king of Zobim, and the king of Bela, which is Zor. All these were joined together in the valley of Siddim, which is the South Sea. 12 years they served Kedolomar, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year then came Kedolomar and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims and Asteroth, Kerenim, and the Zuzim, and and the Emins, and Sheve, Kiratim, and the Erites in their Mount Seir, and El Paran, which is by the wilderness. And they returned and came to En Mizpah, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites and the Amorites, and they dwelt in Ezon Tamar. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zobidim, and the king of Bela, same is Zor, and they joined battle with them in the valley of Siddim. And Shedorlamar, the king of Elam, which is Tidal, king of Nation, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings with five, and the vale of Siddim, in the vale of Siddim, full of Thimpits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there. And they that remained fled to the mountain. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their victuals, and went their way. And they took Lot, Abraham's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. Was Lot Abraham's son? So if we are looking here, when we see this, and Lot Abraham's son, and who was Lot? Abraham's nephew. So when they said Lot Abraham's son, in reference to Abraham's son, he was a kindred, he was a family member to Lot, but he wasn't Abraham's son, right? So is it showing you that 5 kings fight against Sodom and Gomorrah? What I want you to understand is clearly, that when God called Abraham, right? Who went with him? Lot go with him? All right. What type? Okay. When they heard man was too much, what did they see? Both of them see. What did Lot see? Lot see what the green pasture, right? Let us identify what happened here. We are looking at Genesis, and we are looking at a few information. And the land was green and was flourishing. But you have to understand and identify that even though it looked green and flourishing, this is not the land that God called them to go. The land was Canaan, but Lot chose what? Sodom and Gomorrah. All right, so we have to identify. So what happened after a while? That flourishing landmark, that geographical location, become overthrown by 5 kings. 5 kings overthrow Sodom and Gomorrah. And when they overthrow Sodom and Gomorrah, guess who was involved in the captivity? Lot was involved in that captivity. So look at what happened now. Where was Abraham when Lot was involved in captivity? Where was Abraham? He was still at the place where he pitched his tent. Why? Because God inspired him to do so. He said, walk through the land. Remember now, he said, walk through the land, the east, the west, the north, and the southward, and every place where your feet tread upon, I will give it unto you. So while Lot was flourishing in the green pasture, Abraham followed God's instruction. And while Abraham followed God's instruction, God kept Abraham while Lot was in captivity. All right, so we want to look at a few information now, right? So we know that Abraham was 70 and 5 when he departed from Haran into the land of Canaan, according to Genesis 12, verse 24. All right, so when Abraham was in the land of Canaan, what happened when he was almost 100 years old? What happened? According to Genesis, so we want to remember we're in Genesis, so I'm going to quote through Genesis. I'm going to push through a few areas in Genesis, and then we get back to Genesis chapter 15. All right, look at Genesis 12 and Genesis 21 and verse 5. Genesis 21 and verse 5. All right, so before we go to Genesis 21, I want us to look at this, right? Turn your Bible to Genesis 17. Genesis 17. So I want us to see some information here because after Genesis 17. But before we get to, I like to get some context. Can we read from Genesis 14 to Genesis 17? Then we can discuss. Bless God. We go read from Genesis 14 to Genesis 17. For we finish Genesis 14. So let us start Genesis 15, right? So Genesis 15, 16, and 17. And after these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding reward. And Abraham said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless? And the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus. And Abraham said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed. And lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now toward heaven and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for what? Righteousness. He believed in the Lord, and it counted to him as what? For righteousness. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees, to give thee this land to inherit it. And he said, Lord God, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me an heifer for 3 years old, and a she-goat and 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took unto him all these, and divided them in the midst, and laid each pieces one against another, and the birds divided he not. And when the fowls came down upon the carcass, Abraham drove them away. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abraham, and lo, an arrow of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abraham, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years, and also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. And afterward they shall come out with what? Great substance. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. But in the fourth generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. It came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river Euphrates. The Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Kadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites. Now Sarah, Abraham's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarah said unto Abraham, behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid, it may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarai, and Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian. After Abraham had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abraham to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she conceived, her mistress was despised in her height. And Sarah said unto Abraham, my wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between me and thee. But Abraham said unto Sarah, behold, thy maid is in thy hand to do to her as it pleased thee. And when Sarah dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the valley of Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarah's maid, whence comest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarah. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction, and he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hands against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of the Lord that spake unto her, Thou God seest me. For she said, have I also here looked after him that seeth me? Wherefore the well was called Beer-Alai-Roi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bare Abraham a son, and Abraham called his son's name, which Hagar bare Ishmael. And Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abraham. So 86, how much would you say that is? 86. 86. So Abraham was what? 86 when his first son was born. All right, I want us to go back to something here. I want you to see something here. Remember, right, when we look in the scripture, right? God gave Abraham a vision that what? His generation going to be in captivity, right? And they go serve for almost 400 years. Why? I want you to pinpoint this and tell me. Why do you think they were caught into captivity? I want us to look at a few studies here, right? He said, in chapter 15, and he said unto Abraham, know it of a surety, Genesis 15 and verse 13. And he said unto Abram, know for surety that thy seed shall be in a strange land. Right? A strange land that is not theirs, and shall serve them. Why? Serve them, and they shall not afflict them. How much years? So this was a prophecy. This was before Isaac was born. All right, I want you to understand something clearly here. Why do you think stuff like that happen? Why do you think stuff like that happen? Come on, talk to me. Why do you think stuff like that happen? Was God looking into the future? All right, who enslaved the children of Israel? Who enslaved them? What nation enslaved them? The Egyptian, right? Okay. Who was the first son that was born to Abraham? Where did his mother come from? What up? Okay. What his mother was what? All right. So what happened, the reason why they were taken captive by the Egyptian was because Abraham refused to wait on God. If Abraham had trusted God and waited on God, timing and God, purpose and God promise, then his generation would never be captive by the Egyptians. But because Abraham did what his wife said to do and didn't do what God said to do, and his first child, the mother of Ishmael, was an Egyptian woman. And when you look back to the generation, because now Ishmael's mom was an Egyptian, now the older shall lead the younger. So it's a generational thing. So you ever hear when people talk about generational curses? Because whatever generation starts first will have the next one in captivity. So right there and then when you look at the Egyptian woman, then guess what happened? Egyptian bondage. Because the seed wasn't Ishmael. The seed was supposed to be what? Isaac. But because Abraham go ahead and do, remember it wasn't God who said to Abraham, you shall take Hagar for wife. It was Abraham listened to, all right, when we are looking at Genesis now, I want us to look back to Genesis. Who has said to the man, God said, you shall not surely die? The serpent. And after the serpent beguiled the woman, what did the woman say to the man? The serpent gave to me, and I eat. And okay, so what did Adam say when God said, who told thee that thou was what did he say? What did he say? The woman that you do, that you gave me, gave it to me. And okay, so look at this now, the trend and the pattern. You have to understand the trend and the pattern here. Now, Sarah's Abraham's wife, bearing what? According to chapter 16, he said, now Sarah, Abraham's wife, bare him no children. And she had what? An handmaid, clearly here, and what? Genesis 16 verse 1. An handmaid, and what descendant is she from? She was a what? Egyptian. What nation keep Israel, the children of Israel, in the captivity? When you step ahead of God, and do what God didn't say to do, guess what happened? You will be taken into captivity. Whatever may capture you will capture you. But I adjure people that any one of us always wants stuff to happen before God's timing. And we expect God to do his thing before his timing. And when God don't do it, and in our eyesight, if we don't see it, we get impatient. And when we get impatient, we say, God is not working and God is not doing anything. Didn't you see that in Abraham? Abraham get impatient because he thought that it take too long. It would be like me here and God give me a task and say, hang on, preacher, and do whatever you have to do. And many would look at it and say, while I'm trusting God and waiting God, people are like, okay, when is this going to do this, then this? And I'm like, okay, it's not me, it's God. We have to understand this clearly. It's not what man said, what God said. And when we trust God to do a specific task, he will fulfill. Remember, we are just stewards. We are just servants. And what we do as servant and steward, we follow God. Yes, Sister Maddie. So before all of that happened, God showed Abraham what go happen. Right? Just imagine God give you a vision and said, guess what happened? And when Abraham fall into that vision, God know what go happen to Abraham. Remember, this was before Abraham even going to Hagar. So God already know what's going to happen. So prior to what you're going to do, I'm going to pre-plan this ahead. So yes, Sister Malay, let me hear clearly. I couldn't hear you so clearly. Bless God with the microphone. Say, yeah.
God already knew that Abram was going to, in verse 2, 16 verse 2, catch my eye, when it said, Abram hearkened the voice of Sarai. So God already knew that Abram was going to listen to Sarai and not follow, and listen to God's promises, and because the vision came before, he
went in before he went into Hagar, right?
Yeah.
So think about this now. If God gave you a vision before, right? Me know if God is going to give a seed, and then God is showing me captivity before expansion, captivity before his seed expand, and say they're going to be in captivity. Look how long too. God said, you shall die at a good old age. That means, Abraham, I call you, but you will not be captive, because you will die at what? A good old age. And then God said, for 400 years your generation shall be in captivity. Can you imagine how long that happened? And look at this. Do you know that the children of Israel never went into captivity until after Abraham died? While Abraham was alive, remember Abraham went to what? Egypt, right? And the Egyptian king wanted to take Abraham's wife. Remember when he says, my sister? Because God never wanted him to be there. What happened? The king said, take your family and go. Was that what God said? He said, take everybody, and then what? And Abraham followed, and Abraham stepped up, because God, in spite of the famine, God never wanted Abraham to dwell in Egypt. Do you notice when God called you, God cover you? When God put an assignment on your life, I want you to understand is that God will fulfill his plan. All right, so what age was Abraham when he had his first son? So remember, we are looking at the gap, the time span. When Abraham had his first son, he said 86. So I want to, if I ask that question again, can everyone have it? Because I don't see no manuscript, I don't see no script, I don't see nothing, and I'm looking at some timestamp. All right. So Abraham was how much when he left Haran? How much was Abraham when he left Haran? 75. All right. And how much was Abraham when he had his first son with Hagar? So 75. So the time span between Abraham leaving Haran to the timing that Abraham had his first son, how much years was that? 11. So 11 years after Abraham left Haran, Abraham couldn't wait on God. So after 11 years, Abraham get what? Fed up. Abraham said, God, you promised me a son and a seed. So 11 years after, I can't see nothing. Just imagine God promised you something, and you're waiting for God 11 long years, but nothing happening. And then you step before God and do what you want to do because you are impatient. Think about that. He was impatient, and he stepped ahead and follow. Who did he follow? Sarah, his wife, said, I'm unable to bear any child, to bear you any seed. So what I want you to do at this time is to do what? Is to take Hagar, my maid, and you can have children. And look at this. Sarah said it, but she never expected it to happen. She said that you could have child, but when she got pregnant, what she do? She sent her away. She persecuted her. The same woman who says something persecute the woman who conceived. So it's a setup And prior to the setup, the Bible clearly said, oh, Hagar was what? Persecuted. I want you to look at this now. Because Sarah persecuted Hagar, God also allowed Hagar nation to persecute. Oh, God. So the logic of this right about now, what we are looking at, it didn't start with Ishmael doing Isaac wrong. Think about it. But it starts with impatience because 11 years after Abraham left Haran, Abraham was impatient. And because of 11 years, the next generation suffer for 400 years. Think about this. I want us to understand this clearly. When we get impatient and we want to do God's thing ourselves and step ahead of God, our generation after us will suffer the consequence. Because as long as God didn't move us, and as long as God don't move us to move, we should stay in our assignment and in our position until God fulfill his plan in our life. All right, so I want us to look at a few other information here, right? So we see all of these stuff in the book of Genesis. Remember, we're in Genesis 16, right? All right, so we understand clearly that the reason why they were taken into captivity because the first son of Abraham was an Egyptian. God didn't tell you that your seed was coming from an Egyptian. So because your seed start from an Egyptian, they were captive by the Egyptian bondage. You see that? And because Hagar was persecuted by Sarah, because Abraham listened to Sarah and do what his wife said and didn't do what God said, his entire generation, the original seed and the descendants after them, was in captivity for 400 years prior to not listening to God. If I should ask a question today, how many times we get impatient because we're not seeing what we want to see because God didn't do it in our time limit? So God didn't do what he's doing in our time limit. So what happened? We get impatient because we want to see God work today. But God is saying, I'm not working in your 11 years time span. I'm working according to my time span. All right, so we want to go further now. We want to go further, right? We want to look at Genesis 21 and verse 5. Remember, Genesis 21 and verse 5, right? Genesis 21 verse 5. Remember, 11 years it take Abraham to get Ishmael. So Genesis 21 and verse 5 now. We want to look at Genesis. So we want to look at when the seed was born. Genesis 21 and verse 5. So when we look at Genesis 21, let's just read from verse 1. Genesis 21. And the Lord visited who? Sarah, and he said, and the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son, what time? In his old age. At the time, which time? At the time of what? Of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being what? 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was what? 100 years old when what? When his son Isaac was born unto him. How old was Abraham when Ishmael was born to him? 86. And by 86, right? That was 11 years when he left from Haran, right? All right. From 86 now to 100. How much you see there? 86. So you have 14 years. 14 years. So 14 plus 11, that's what? 25? So how long did the promise take to come? 25 years. So 25 years after leaving Aaron, the promise come together. What a God. So can you imagine waiting on God for 25 years and nothing happening? Does that sound like any one of us? When Abraham stepped ahead and go and do what God didn't tell him to do, at 11 years, he get a first child. And because of that mistake, because of that what he did, the entire generation that God promised him go into captivity. 25 years. All right, so let us use some perspective now. What about the people who God called for a purpose? But when that purpose is not fulfilled in our time limit, we get discouraged, we get disappointed, and then we say, God, you're not working. Should God do to us as what he did to Abraham? So when we step ahead of God and do what we want to do, and then when we do what we want to do because God is not working in the time when we expect him to work, what happened? Would you want to be in captivity for 400 years and your generation because you didn't do right by God? So think about this. God called you for a specific task and somebody said to you, don't follow God, follow me. Do what I tell you to do. And at the end of the day, because of that error, your entire generation after become captive. Think about it, people. The God in whom we trust. Do you know that God's timing is not our timing, is not man's time? Man's timetable is not God's timetable, you know. 11 years Abraham waited for almost 11 years. And Abraham get frustrated for 11 years. And Abraham's wife also get frustrated because she couldn't bear a son. Sarah said to Abraham, go into my maid, Hagar, so you could conceive and get a son. Because look at this now. That means for 11 years I'm with you. Even before that, when we leave from your father's house, and I'm not able to give you a child. But we have an handmaid named Hagar. So Abraham, because I can't wait no more, remember I know, God didn't tell Abraham who the seed is coming from. God said, your seed, remember when God said to Abraham, walk through the land? We read from Genesis chapter 13 onward. When God said to Abraham, walk to the land, right? Walk to the land, and what happened when he walked to the land? Somebody's driving down the one-way street. I wonder who is that. Walk to the land, and when you walk to the land, you may go east, west, north, south. And every place where your foot is, there you go possess. Your generation after you go be over this land. Remember, God already gave you the land. God said your seed will inhabit this land. Your generation will inhabit this land. But because of impatience, how many times we get impatient waiting for God to move? Waiting for God to answer us. And then we step ahead and do what we feel is right in our own sight. But God did not sign it. So tell me now, if Abraham had waited for 25 years, then his generation would never be in captivity. Because Abraham would have followed God, and the seed that God promised Abraham would have come to pass. And guess what happened? Everything would be in alignment. And do you understand that? Do you know that God sees our mistake before it happens? God understands and knows everything that we are going through before it happens. And everything, notice, just as how God have a plan for Adam and Eve. Do you know that that's how God set a plan for Abraham and his generation? For God said, even though they disobey me, remember, when they was caught into captivity, going to Egyptian bondage, remember, when Jacob and his children, when they went back down to Egypt and they start to live there, and they start to expand. Because now, the nation that birthed the seed, that it wasn't the seed, managed over the nation that didn't wait on God, because managed over the seed because of one man's disobedience, because Abraham didn't wait. Impatience can cause you, can push you back. Like impatience can push you back. How much? Push back your generation 400 plus years. And because of impatience, All Abraham needed to do is just to wait on God for 25 years. And after that 25 years, God would have fulfilled every purpose in his life. All right, so how old was Abraham when Ishmael was born? 86 years of age, right? And how old was Abraham when Isaac was born? 100. Right? And how old was Abraham when he left from Haran? He was 75. So look at the math. 75 to 100 gave you how much? 25. 75 to 11 give you what? 86. So the first son was Abraham was 86. The second son, Isaac, who is the seed, Abraham was 100. All right, so we want to go further now. We want to look at a few more information here, right? All right, so after Isaac, right? So we want to look at Genesis 25, verse 7 to 9. Abraham, we want to see how long did Abraham live. Remember now, Abraham, now the seed is born, right? So you have Ishmael and you have Isaac. Ishmael, whose son was Ishmael? Hagar, right? Whose son was Isaac? Sarah. Sarah, the mother of Isaac. Hagar, the mother of Ishmael, right? So now we want to look at a few information here. How long did Abraham live after? How long did Abraham live after he have both sons? We want to look at Genesis 25 and verse 7. Genesis 25 and verse 7. So we are looking at a few age gap here. Genesis 25 and verse 7. So when we look at Genesis 25 and verse 7, so we can put a few information here together. All right, so Genesis 25 and verse 7. And these are the days of the years of Abraham's life. These are the days and the years of Abraham's life which he lived, 100, threescore, and 15 years old. How much is that? 100, threescore. Okay, so how old was Abraham? 100 and what? All right, so let us do the maths now. Let us do the maths. If Abraham lived 165 years, right? How long did Abraham live after Isaac? How long did Abraham live after Isaac was born? How much? That's easy math, right? 65 years, because Abraham was 100 when Isaac. Okay, how long did Abraham live after Ishmael was born? Because, look at this. Abraham left Haran at 75. And Ishmael was born when Abraham was 86. So if Ishmael was born when Abraham was 86, and Abraham lived 160, look at this, 75. I want to, hey, we get it wrong here. Go back to the mathematics here, Ava. He said, and these are the days of the years of Abraham's life, which he lived, 100, threescore, and 15. How much is that? 100 is not 100, it's 100, threescore, and 15 years. Right? So it's Abraham lived 175 years. So go back to the math. So that means when Abraham died, he lived 75 years after he had Isaac. You see that? All right, so 75 plus 11 is how much? 75 plus 11 what? 86? All right, so how much years did Abraham live after he had his first son, Ishmael? 86. There we go. So all right, so 86, 75. That means when Abraham left Haran, his first son, because of impatience, was born 11 years. So between Abraham and Isaac, it was 86 years for Ishmael, he lived after, and it was 75 years that he lived after for Isaac. And remember, did the Bible say he will die at a good old age? So did God fulfill his promise here? When God gave him the vision, he said, your generation and your children will be taken into what? Captivity, right? Did he say that? And he said, you will die at a what? Good old age. So God's promise is what? Amen and amen. And whenever God speaks something, he will manifest what he speaks. And he will do what he say, what? In what? His time, for his purpose, for his plan. All right? So Abraham died at what? 175. 175. All right. So we want to look at a few more information here, right? Right? All right. So we want to look at Abraham's son, because they didn't give much information about his first son, because the Bible doesn't give information prior to the one who wasn't the seed. I want us to understand that's why you always have more information on Isaac than Ishmael. So according to God's calendar, God only give information to who he called. Hello? God only give information to the person and persons that what he have called. So now we understand that clearly that God gave information to the person who we have called for a specific task. Then now we are going to understand also the seed now. So now we want to look at the seed. So Isaac now, so how old would you say Isaac is now? When Abraham died, how old would be Isaac? So we are looking at some age gap. So Abraham lived 175 years of age, right? 175 you jump. That's how if judgment will be coming and the sky bursts up, you'll be like, oh Lord. Right? So bless God. So think about it now, right? So Isaac was how old when Abraham died? If Abraham was 175 when he died, right? Abraham was what? 175 when he died. And Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. How old is Isaac now? 75. Okay, we are doing the math here. Okay, we are doing the math. So Isaac was about 75 years old. Isaac was 75 years of age when Abraham died. So, okay, how old would be Ishmael when Abraham died? One looking at how old would be Ishmael? For since so 75 plus 11 is how much? 86, right? So the first son would be 86, and second son Isaac would be 75. 86, 75. All right, think about this now. All right, so now God gave them a promise that your generation will be taken into what? Captivity. For how much years? 400 years. His generation will be taken into captivity. But before all of that happened, God said to Abraham, God kept his promise with Abraham and said, I will make you to live at a good old age. That means 175. And Abraham lived 175 years and never see captivity. Because God had promised him that he would live. But his choice and his decision caused his generation to be in captivity, because Abraham didn't listen to God. Abraham listened to Sarah. And when Abraham listened to Sarah, his wife, guess what happened? He had a son before God gave him the promise. 11 years, he didn't wait on God. So after 11 years, he get impatient. And after 11 years, Sarah said to Abraham, take Hagar, my maid, and have a son with her. And 25 years after, God gave him the promise. Because Sarah was barren. She couldn't conceive. And because she couldn't conceive, she didn't wait on God. She didn't trust God. I always look at this, Do you know that God always used the impossible things to confound the wise? He said God used the base thing of this world to do what? To confound the wise. Because you have to understand this. If Sarah could just be a child like that, then you wouldn't see the power of God working there, right? Something had to happen to her in order to see the mighty working power of God. That means the woman was barren, but God's seed come from the one that couldn't be a child. So God had to work a miracle there in order for the seed to come. That means man couldn't have nothing to do with it or say to it. God had to do the specific for it to happen. Bless God? All right. So we want to look at, all right. So Isaac now, so the generation start. So when did the generation start? We want to look at how the generation started. So after 75 years, Isaac is now 75. And we have to understand this now, right? And Abraham died. And we want to look at Genesis 25 and verse 20. We want to look at Genesis 25 and verse 20. Matter of fact, before we do that, I like to do context. I like to read the Bible in context, right? I like to work in context because before Isaac, we want to know what happened to the descendants of Ishmael, right? Since he's the first one, right? So let us look at Genesis 25 and verse 12. Now, these are the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son. Who? These are the generation of who? Ishmael, whose son? Abraham's son, who had Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's handmaid, bare unto Abraham. And these are the names of the sons of Ishmael, by their names according to their generation. The firstborn of Ishmael were Nebuchadnezzar, and Kedar, and Abdil, Mibsam, Mishma, and Duma, and Mazah, Adar, and Tamar, Jethro, Nephish, and Kedima. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names by their towns, as by their castles. 12 princes according to their nation. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael. Look at this now. These are the years of the life of Ishmael. Ishmael, 100 what? And 30 and what? 7 years. And he gave up the ghost. So how old was Ishmael when he died? All right. Are we seeing number there? Anyone, whenever you study, did you ever put these into consideration? Ishmael was what? 100 and what? 37 years. So Ishmael died at 137. How old did Abraham when he died? How old was Abraham when he died? 175. Abraham was what? 175 when he died. Right? And Ishmael, it was what? 137 years old. 137. Ishmael was what? 137 years old. And he gave up the ghost. And was gathered unto his people. Right? All right. So, I want you to understand this now, right? Nations, we have to study that in the generation of Ishmael and see. Because if we study descendants and the generation of Ishmael, they will know that like when we look at his name, the Nebo, and then we look at the Ishmaelites, we look at the Kedar, and we look at Mr. All of these names derive from different generations. So we could search them when we do research, because we're not doing any study on this today. We can do like a deeper research to see the generation of Ishmael, where they stand and where they lie, and if they continue until today. But now we're just looking at the time span and the time lapse between sons and between the age gap. All right, so now we know that Ishmael died at 170. All right, so how long did Ishmael live after Abraham died? How long did Ishmael live after Abraham died? How long? Because Ishmael was 86 when Abraham died, right? Ishmael was what? 86 when Abraham died. So if Ishmael was 86 when Abraham died, and Ishmael lived 137 years. So 137, 86 minus 137, how much you got? 51. So Ishmael lived how much? 51 years after his father died. You see the time gap? 51 years after his father died, Ishmael passed away. So now, Ishmael lived 51 years. So now we want to see something now. Which one of these sons lived longer? Did Isaac live longer? Or did Ishmael live longer? So now we want to look further now. And we want to look at Genesis 25 and verse 20. Genesis 25, the same Genesis 25. Remember, the same Genesis 25 and verse 12 show you the descendant of Ishmael. Genesis 25 and verse 19 now, give you now. And these are the generations of Isaac. Look at this now. Remember, Ishmael was the first son. He died at 137. He was 50. How much years when he died after Abraham? Yes, how much? 51. All right. Let us look at now. Jacob, look at this now. These are the generation of Isaac. Who is this? Abraham's son. Abraham begot Isaac, and Isaac was what? 40 years old when he took what? Rebekah to wife. So let me ask you a question now. How old was Isaac when Abraham died? How old was Isaac when Abraham died? Because Isaac now is 40, right? And Abraham lived how much years? 170, right? 175. So Abraham is 175. How old was Abraham when Isaac was born? Come on, think about it. Come on, Malians. Ava, come on. Work this one now. Do some mathematics. Because if Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born, think about this. Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Isaac was 40 when Isaac met his wife. That means, think about it. So we have a 35-year lapse. So Isaac, we have a 35-year lapse, right? Come on, look at the math. 75, 40 from 75 left how much? 35. All right. How old did Ishmael live? 51. Right? Come on, people. Do mathematics here. 51. That means Isaac was 40. So when Isaac was 40, how old was Ishmael? Because Ishmael lived 51 years. So when Isaac was 40, okay. How old Ishmael is? Because 25 years. So 11 from 25 is how much? So 11 from 25 is 14. Okay. So 40 plus 11 is how much? And how old was Ishmael when Isaac had his wife Rebekah? 51 and he died. Think about it, do the math. 51 now. Because 40 years, Isaac was 40. So while Isaac was 40, Ishmael would be how much? 51. See that? So while Ishmael was 51, Isaac was 40. And how old did Ishmael live? 137. So if Ishmael lived 137, how much years did Ishmael live after Isaac's first wife? Come on, do the maths. So 40 plus 11 is 51. So 51 minus 137 is how much? 86. So Ishmael lived 86 years after his brother married. You see this stuff? All right. So and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian of Padanaram, the sister of Laban the Syrian. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was what? Where did you see this situation before? So Isaac's mother was barren, right? Sarah was barren before. Remember, Sarah was the mother, right? Sarah was the mother of who? Isaac. It took Abraham 25 years before Sarah could conceive Isaac. And here come the family lineage going again. Now Isaac got a wife named Rebekah. And what happened? Rebekah was barren. So here we go again with the same situation. And look at this. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah, his wife, to what? Conceive. But one of them didn't step out of God's lineage. Isaac followed who? Even though she was barren, did Isaac take another woman? Ah. So the generation now continues. Isaac waited on God. And while he waited on God, he said, God, that means God favored her, Rebecca. And she conceived. And Rebecca, his wife, conceived. And the children, what? Look at this now. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. What? The elder shall what? Serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red and over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And the other that came up his brother out, and his hands took hold on his Esau's heel, and his name was called what? Jacob. All right, so we want to see something here. And now we want to look at the family lineage, right? Who was Abraham's first son? Ishmael. And who was the seed? The second son. Now look at the family, look at the generation and stuff that happened now, right? This is what happened into the generation. Look what happened now. So, the first served the last. Because Ishmael wasn't the seed, but Isaac was the seed. God chose Isaac, but not Ishmael. Look at the family lineage now. So then you look at generational stuff that happened to generation. I want us to look at this clearly. After that, guess what happened now? Now the son of Abraham now have 2 sons. Look at it. He's patterned in his father's genealogy, right? So I am doing the things that my father did. How much nation come from Isaac? It was 2. How much sons come from Abraham? It was 2. Ishmael, Isaac. And now you have what? Esau, Jacob. What happened now? So the first son for Abraham wasn't the seed. But look at how God does stuff. Why is it that when Esau and Jacob come, look at it. These 2 were born to Rebecca. Rebecca was in the right standing, right? But look at the genealogy of the generation. He said, no, the younger shall serve what? The older. In God's time, if we look at God's time span, we'd say that the older shall serve what? Wasn't this the same thing that mean the older wasn't the seed and the younger is the seed with Isaac and Ishmael also? So the younger is the seed, the older, because the older, so the generation continues. All right, so while the generation continues now, we want to look further. He said, and Isaac was how much? 70 years old when she bare. So how old was Isaac when he married to Rebekah? 40. 70 is how much? 60. So how old after Isaac married did this son come? How long? Oh, he said, how long after Isaac married did this son come? 20 years. And how long after Abraham leave Aaron did his first son come? How old? So I want us to look at this time limit, right? Because when Abraham leave Aaron, he couldn't wait for 25 years. Abraham waited 11 years and was fed up because guess what? It's not Abraham. I think it's Sarah. I think Abraham's wife was fed up, right? And how long did Abraham wait? Did this Isaac wait? So one waited, 11 years for his first son. And one waited how much? 20 years for his son. So I'm seeing a different there. But Isaac waited for God's promise. And from this, I want us to look at the difference now, I want us to look at the difference here. Right? Because the descendant that would be in captivity now is not Ishmael's descendant, it's not Esau's descendant, but the descendant will be coming from the lineage of the seed. So the first one always get freedom. But because of impatience, the second one, who God chose, will always be in captivity. So Isaac was 40, how much? 40 when he married to Rebekah. And he was 60 when he did what? When his first children were, you have to say children because both of them was like twin. All right, so let's go back now to the studies because we are here this morning. We are trying to, remember last week we said we want to know the time span between all of them. And Abraham waited 11 years after he left Aaron. After 11 years, he had Ishmael. And after 25 years, he had Isaac. Think about that. Because Abraham couldn't wait for 25 years for the promise. And look at this now. Now, Isaac waited how much years to have his two sons? 20 years. 20 years. And look at this now. He said, Isaac was 70 years old when she bare them. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tent. And Isaac loved Esau because what? He did eat of the venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Here we goes. With the mother comes in the picture again. So the first one that, what happened to Abraham first? I want us to look at this. 2? Oh, and because of that, God gave him a vision and said, your generation will be in captivity for 400 years. And I want us to understand this clearly. The woman that Abraham had his first son with was an Egyptian. And because the woman was an Egyptian, what nation put them in captivity? Because Egyptian, look at this, if they had waited and gone, then the Egyptian would never capture them. So, the one that had nothing to do with this, Ishmael and Esau, was never captive in Egyptian captivity. Do you see that? Do you know that God keep them from captivity? Do you know that Ishmael generation and Esau generation never going to slavery? Never going to bondage? And those two are the ones that they are not considered the seed, but they were never in bondage. Do you know now that you're having, okay, when you look at, do you know when you're looking at Israel or the Middle East, and you see like the Muslim and the Israel, and when you see this catastrophe and this war between nations, do you know that it stems from this? Because the Ishmael tribe is Abraham tribe, which be the seed. And prior to the seed, they are considered to be the firstborn. And according to Bible knowledge, the Ishmael seed would be the rightful owner of the land. Because they are the firstborn, but God, in God's calendar, God didn't receive Ishmael. That's why up till today, you still have a fighting prior to the Ishmael tribe, prior to the Esau side, and prior to the Israelite side. Because they were first. And they said, God, put them aside and give their inheritance to the younger. So until today, you have a generational warfare that never ended. Yes, Andrew.
Because the person couldn't wait.
Yeah, Abraham couldn't wait on God.
But I beg to differ because Abraham wasn't the one who came up with the idea.
But Abraham could have shut down the idea too. True?
But because God never tell him to shut it down.
But think about this, Sister Andrew. God gave you a plan. God said, Abraham, I'm going to give you a seed. And as much as you see the earth, he said, walk eastward, westward, northward, southward. Anywhere you put your feet, and he said, walk through the land. Anywhere you put your feet, this land shall be yours, and your generation after. I'm going to give you a seed. And the Bible said, Sarah said because she's unable to be a child after 11 years. Look at this now. Remember, God promised Abraham a seed. Look at it. Abraham didn't hear from God, you know. Sarah said to Abraham, I've been with you now from you leave Aaron 11 years. And 11 years I am not able to bear your seed. So take my handmaid. God didn't say that. But Abraham, maybe his son needed a seed because he was impatient too. He didn't consult God after Sarah, after his wife said that to him. Did he consult God? Think about it, Stanley. Did he? Yeah.
You reach the age 86 years old, Pastor. You never have a child. And when you reach 86, you know that's called that.
You're going down the drain.
You're going down at that.
Right. So that's not that. So 86, you never go have one now. So Abraham have don't know, right?
Yeah, because you're human.
Right.
Human gonna come in. Your human side gonna kick in at that time.
And what happened when human perspective come in? What happened? It's always destroy the plan of God. When man step in, it always destroy the plan of God, because anytime man fail to wait on God, you know what happened? Chaos. But look at it. 25 years. Can you imagine God? A man was 100 years old. And God said, even though you said this, you get this one when you was 86. The seed is still not coming because God time, we have to understand it. God timing is not our timing. Abraham still after wait. How much years after Ishmael? Look at this. All right. So one was 11 and then 25 years. So from 11 to 25, God, so look at God now. He still have to wait. Why didn't God give him another year? So since that God see that he was impatient, God go say, okay, since that you can't wait on me, at the 15th year, you go get Isaac. Think about God's timetable. You still have to wait 14 more years. God said, guess what happened? You think at 86 I was planning to do this? God said 100. The only time the seed go on is when you be 100 years of age. And God don't shift for nobody. Think about this. If God do something, he go follow. We as people get impatient. Am I talking truth? Our timetable with God is no, because many people come and say, God, I want you to do this today. When God said next year. How many times we wait on God and then we get impatient and oh God, you're not doing this now. And we want God, according to our perspective and to our insight, we want God to do it now. How many times we want God? Like, God, I am tired of waiting and I need you to do it now. When God said, my time, Abraham, is 100. Abraham said, God, I'm 86. God said, when you're 100. Can you imagine? God, I'm older now. God said 100. God, you know, see me, I get old. I'm wrinkled now, God. And Sarah is definitely passing her 70s now. So, you know, at certain age, God, Sarah, at certain age, my wife now, so where's my seed coming from? And we get impatient and step before God and said, okay, God is not working. So, and look at that. Yep. And look at this now. After Isaac, look at this, sir. And okay, Genesis 26. And there was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of what? Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistine, unto Gerar. And the Lord appeared unto him and said, go not down what? Go not down into Egypt. Dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee. For unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abram thy father. And I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandment, my statutes, and my laws. And Isaac dwelt in Gerar, And the men of the place asked him of his wife, and he said, she is my sister. Where did we see that before? Did Abraham said his wife was his sister? And now the son followed the same family trait because his wife was very fair and beautiful and they fear of what is going. He said, she's my sister. For he feared to say, she is my wife, lest, said he, the men of the place should kill me for Rebekah, because she was very fair. So both of them have some beauty. She was very fair to what? To look upon. And it came to pass when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, but one thing, the king didn't take his wife. King of the Philistines looked out at the window and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah his wife. And Abimelech called Isaac and said, behold, I have surely seized thy wife. And thou saidest thou, she is my sister. And Isaac said unto him, because I said, lest I die for her. And Abimelech said that, what is this that thou hast done unto us? One of the people might lightly have lain with thy wife, and thou shouldest have brought guiltiness upon us. And Abimelech charged all his people, saying, he that toucheth this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. Then Isaac, look at this now, then Isaac sowed in the land and received in the same year an 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. And the man waxed great and went what? Forward, and grew until he became what? Very great. For he had possession of what? Flocks, and possession of herds, and great store of servants, and the Philistines envied him for all the wealth which his father's servant had digged in the days of Abraham his father. And the Philistines had stopped them and filled them with earth. And Abimelech said unto Isaac, go from us, for thou art more mightier than we. And Isaac departed. Look again. Who sent them away again? All right. Which king sent away Abraham? No. The first king that said, when he found out that Abraham's wife was Abraham's wife, did he send away Abraham? All right. And now this king now said, he see that Isaac is expanding. And the king said, depart from this. And Isaac depart from thence and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar, and dwell there. So we have to look at this, right? Right? And there was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar, right? But think about this, right? Isaac went unto the Philistine, unto Gerar, and the Lord appeared unto him and said, go not down to Egypt. So where did Isaac, think about this now. He said, and Abraham and Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines. So where did the king of the Philistines live? According to the Bible. Where did the king of Gerar, right? Right? So even when they sent Isaac out, right? He said, and Isaac departed thence and pitched his tent what? In the same Gerar, right? In the valley, because God said to Isaac, you should not go to Egypt. So right? So Isaac was still living in the area where the Philistines are, right? In Gerar, in the valley of Gerar. All right, and dwell there. And Isaac dig again. Look at this now. What happened to the well that his father had dig? Why did they stop it up? Why did the Philistines and everybody stop it up? Why were they jealous of Isaac?
Because he was progressing.
Okay, what did Isaac do different from everybody else? All right, think. Huh? He do what? All right, I want us to look at the principle here. Verse 12, read verse 12 for me. Then Isaac do what? In what? In what? What? Isaac do what? Which land? Which land?
Not the Philistine land, no?
What was the Philistine land?
No,
Huh? So why did Isaac do that? So you are in a Philistine land. The place where you are inhabited by what? Enemies. It's inhabited by people who are not your people. But what happened? Huh? Huh?
If he saw there and God still bless him, that show you to go that he has a right to do it. Because if God never want him to bless, if God he never supposed to sow there, God wouldn't bless him.
No, I understand, but look at it. He sowed in whose land?
The Philistine.
That's what I want you to get right here. He sowed in whose land? I want you to understand that, people of God, no matter how much enemy come against you, once God plants you in a specific location and you sow to God, is not only your money, your time, your purpose, who you are, and you dwell with God, that means his life is in that land. What happened to him? And God started to elevate him. God started to expand him because he sowed into the land. And he said, in the same year, I want us to, in the same year, he sowed in the land, which year? And the same year he received much. And what? Bless him. And from that word onward, what? And the man what? Was what? Great. And what? And went what? Forward. And grew until he get what? So hold on. He get great. And then he continued to move forward. And then he get what again? Very great. For he had what? Look at now. When he went there, did he have anything? When he went there, did he take anything? When he go to Gira, the only thing you know that his father has possession. But now he's in this land of the Philistine. Now, for he had possession of what? Flocks. Possession of what? Herds. And great store of what? And the Philistine, oh God Almighty. Please, people of God, don't make God start to bless you. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When God starts to open the door for you. I'm not sure, but he said, Isaac sowed in that land. And God what? Yes, Sister Abby. Mm-hmm.
We are from Jamaica.
Yep.
However, we live in America.
America, yep. Yep.
And as soon as you start build up something back home, everybody starts envying. Yes, man. It's the same thing.
For your work in this land. And when you work, you pay your tax, you do what you have to do in the land, and you carry a little money out and you go back. What happened? Then the people around you might not be Philistine. But guess what happened? I guarantee you that the moment any one of you are a child of God today, your greatest attack will come when you are moving forward.
Yes.
What am I saying here? Never a time you will see people attack anybody who is not moving to do nothing. The moment something happened, look at this. Nobody hated him, when he went into the land. Nobody hated him when he had no cattle. But as soon as the man started to expand, then haters come. Even the Philistine king hated him. You know what the king said? This man is waxing greater. Do you know that people are watching? Do you know that people's eyes are on you to see what God is doing with you? Yes, Sister Andrew.
Pastor, you just watch them because a snake will always reveal himself.
No, snake is sneaky.
Yeah, but he might reveal
But
himself.
you will always see skin.
He might show himself. Somewhere along the line,
Yes,
he might
God,
show
yes,
himself.
God. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, because guess what happened? God go cover you. Even though you have authority to take them out. The king have authority, to wipe out everything that Isaac got, I want you to understand there's a covering that goes with God's people. When God cover you, God go lay a boundary over you that you can't touch my people. And in that land, guess what? Because the king can't touch him, God said, guess what happened? Let him go make you expand. How many of you serve God today? When you serve God, many stuff come, and the more stuff comes, the more God expand you. Just think about it. I want you to look at 10 years ago where you were, or 20 years ago where you were. And then 20 years after, look at where you are now. And when you look at something, you didn't put yourself there, you didn't give yourself nothing at all. All you do is just serve God. And then all of a sudden, people hate their guts out of you for nothing at all. Nothing that happened in his life, you do it yourself, because it wasn't by your ability you do it. It wasn't by you, but you just trust God, and then God just do stuff. Am I talking truth here? And when God do it, what happened after? Does anyone of your life sound like Isaac? Anyone of your life sound like Isaac? Isaac sowed in the land, and what happened? All right. So all right, so well, let us look at Genesis 27. So we're looking at some age gap. And it came to pass when Isaac was old. What's my time, bless God? I think I passed my time, bless God. I'm good. 12:57. All right, so I'm done in extreme minute. And it came to pass when Isaac was old, and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called unto Esau his eldest son, and said unto him, my son. And he said unto them, behold, here I am. And he said, behold, now I am old, and I know not the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapon and quiver, and thy bow, and go into the field, and take me some venison, and make me savory meat, which as I love, and bring it to me. So now he's gonna bless, right? He's gonna bless his son. Yeah, venison, and make me savory meat, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat. Look at that, my soul may what? Bless thee. That I may eat, and my soul may what? Bless thee, and then I die. Look at this now. And Rebekah heard when Isaac spake unto Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison, and to bring it. And Rebekah spake unto Isaac his son, saying, behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, bring me venison, and make me savory meat, and I may eat, and bless thee before the Lord, before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Look at, obey whose voice? And do what? According to that which I commanded thee, go now to the flock, and fetch me from thence 2 good kids. The mother is very tricky. Why do you think they said the name Jacob is a trickster? The mother said to Jacob, put on some stuff on your hand, do this stuff, and go to your father, because guess what? I wanted to steal your brother blessing. Because the man was for it. Esau was the first son, and look at this. Look at this. No. Look at this. So, and Isaac loved Esau. Yes, Sister Abia, Sister Andrew. And Jacob, because Esau is the first one come out, Jacob hold on to his heel. While Esau was coming, Jacob held on. That means from birth, Jacob is taking away his brother's birthright. Because you're not going before me. Yep. So think about this. Up to today. And look at this now. When you look at further. And after that, his mother said all of those stuff. And we want to look at... Yep.
Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Go now to the flock, and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of a goat, and I will make them savory meat for thee, for thy father, such as he loveth.
But think about this though. I want us to see now. I want us to look at something here, right? And it came to pass, verse 30 of Genesis 27, verse 30. And it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac, his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. And he also had made savory meat, that means he made soup for his father, and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, let me, father, look at this, let me, father, arise and eat of his son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. Look at this. Now Isaac coming and now Esau coming and ready for bless. And Isaac his father said unto him, who art thou? Yes, sister.
Yes, Lord. But Pastor, if you check up back more,
Yeah.
Isaac knew it wasn't
Because he
Esau.
said, this doesn't feel like.
He said the voice
Yes.
is of Jacob.
But
they feel as of, so he knew.
Yeah. So think about this. Yes, it's Darby.
Esau sell out his birthright for a cup of word.
He don't even deserve it.
So before his father blessed him, right? He did sell it to Jacob, right? I know we need the blessing. So Jacob tricked him and said, I guess he was hungry, and Jacob said, I got food. And Esau said, and Jacob said, you have to give me something for this. And he sold his birthright for food. When you look at the scripture. Yeah. And they sell it out. And when they sell it out, afterward they want it back. And when it's gone, what happens? It's gone. Yep, and then guess what happened? And guess who Esau get mad with Jacob? Remember you sell out your birthright to your brother? And your brother says, since you sell it, me I go take it from your father. And when we take it from your father, I'm going to be the blessed one. Think about this though. Yes, Samuel, go ahead.
I want to ask a question. How good was the food for him to sell out his whole birthright?
No, think about this, Samuel. He was hungry. He was coming from hunting and he was hungry. So it didn't tell you about the goodness of the food. All it tell you that Esau was hungry. Right? He was hungry. So I want us to look at a few stuff though. All right. Think about this now, right? I want you to see the blessing now. Prior to what happened there, I want you to see the blessing. There's a blessing and there's a curse, right? All right. And Isaac, then he said, thy brother came with subtlety and had taken away thy blessing. Who come with subtlety? Jacob, according to verse 35, Isaac said, thy brother had come with its subtlety and take away thy blessing. And he said, is not he rightly named Jacob? Look at this. Is not he rightly named Jacob? For he had supplanted me these 2 times. So, 2 times. He took away my birthright. See, that's 1. And behold, now he had taken away my blessing. 2. And he said, hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, behold, I have made him the Lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servant. And with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, as thou but one blessing, my father, bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above, says a desert man. Yes, Sister Abby, yeah. And they should not trick their child into a blessing. Because when you trick your child into a blessing, guess what happens? The outcome will be dire. Yes. Yes, Sister Andy.
You realize with Jacob, that trickery follow him go straight into the new land.
Yep.
And there was a penalty for it after. The penalty even follow his children after. Because of what his mother do.
And I want you to understand. So remember, as we look at there's penalty, because prior to your generation start, it can transcend to your next generation. So what are we saying here? When we look at the timing, because I'm closing here until we continue. Remember, we are going to start from Genesis 28 next week. Because, all right, so how old? Let me just go back to some revision now. How old was Abraham when he had his first son? When he had Ishmael? 86. And how old was Abraham when he had Isaac? 100. And how old was Ishmael when Abraham left from Iran? 51. How old was? How old was Abraham. How old was Abraham when he leave from Iran? How old was Abraham when he leave from Iran? How old was Abraham when he leave from Iran? When God said, get you out of that country. How old? Abraham. There we go. Okay. And how old was Abraham when Ishmael was born? All right. And how old was Ishmael when Isaac was born? Mm-hmm. Hmm? So Isaac was born when Abraham was 100. Ishmael was born. Ishmael was born when Abraham was 86. So 86 and 14 is how much? So 14 years apart, right? It's 14? 86 and 14 is how much? All right, so 11 and 25 is how much? So from 11 to 25, how much? So 111 year, 125 year. So Ishmael was born, right? Ishmael was born 11 years after Abraham leave Iran. And Isaac was born 25 years after Abraham leave Iran. So 86 Abraham when Ishmael was born, 25 Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. So how much years apart? But so from between Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael and Isaac. Mm-hmm. So 86 and 100, 14. So, right? And how long did Ishmael live? How long did Ishmael live? 137. There we go. And how long did Abraham live? 175. And how old was Isaac when he met Rebekah? Oh, good. There we go. So all of this stuff, did we get anything today? Bless God. So to be continued next week, and remember, we are looking at the age gap and the time span that lapse between both, between the kids, between generation, and we are looking at stuff that whenever you start right and follow God, what follow you after? Blessings and the victory. God bless you. Let us stand. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you today for the studying of your word. Allow us, oh God, to adapt to your word. Allow your word, oh God, to live in us, oh God. Oh God, you said, study to show ourselves approved, a workman needed not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. So today, God, we put you before, we put your word ahead, and allow us, oh God, to eat your word, to follow your word, for your glory, for your honor, for your praise. So we can be edified and you can be glorified. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Bless God. So we take like a 5 minutes break and we get back to